Happy Friday, Pat. We even started on time.
Yeah. Hey, Rick, how you doing, buddy?
I'm not doing too bad. So, what do you got for us today?
I ain't got nothing.
Yeah, I'm kind of tapped out myself. What are we going to do?
I don't know. You got an idea?
Let's bring Jackie in.
There we go. She livens it up.
Yeah,
We're
now
trying
we
to.
don't have to
That
think.
was
We got Jackie. Welcome back.
that was terrible
Thank
acting
you.
on our part. That was terrible
Yeah,
acting on our part.
yeah. She
Terrible
got.
acting.
I don't need to worry about you joining the Actors Guild now. I got so. Well, welcome. We are kind of getting warmed up here today. We're talking about whether or not the market is cooling, and it is, and it isn't. So we get to explain all that fun stuff, and I'm going to do that.
Get
And
rolling.
before we get rolling, we have inventory days 8,748, almost at that magic 9 number, and we had 4,759 come on past 7 days with only 3,530 go under contract. Now I'm going to drill into that number a little bit too, guys. That's a difference of 1,229 units. So let me ask you, Jackie, are we cooling?
That's a loaded question. Yes and no.
Yeah.
It depends. I think it's very micro. I listened to Tina today with the Cromford, and between that 3 and 400,000 range is where we're seeing the biggest change. And I think it's all interest rate increases driven. Between the
Yeah.
between the 5 and 6, demand is the same. 6 to 7, 8, demand seems to be the same. Even the million plus, that's still as strong as it was. So, and then there's specific areas like Cave Creek, Carefree, certain parts of Scottsdale, certain areas on the west side, but it's very micro. So I'm hearing across the board from a lot of different agents. They think, that things are changing greatly, but I think you really got to dig in deep to specific markets.
And that's kind of what we're going to do today. If I start out right here, just looking at the latest Cromford data we got here, all these red lines it's going down, right? From a seller's market down to more balanced. So Buckeyes all the way down to 178 with 100 being balanced. But in the comments, they're saying it's telling us that the cooling trend is getting even more powerful. Every city has seen its CMI decline by at least 15%, and an average of those 17 cities fall of 24%, compared with an average of 20.5 last week. At some point, we would expect the nosedive to deaccelerate and reach an equilibrium, but we seem to be a long way from that point at the moment. The first signal we are waiting is for the average monthly change minus 24% to be lower than the prior week. So the towns that are really creeping down are Queen Creek down 36, Gilbert down 34, Avondale down 30, and Cave Creek down 30. And so it's definitely changing radically on their front. And then I pulled up listings, and this is sales price to list price. It's still at 102%.
Yep.
Now, the thing to remember, I think, about this is, yeah, but wait, we have all these price reductions. Well, you can start out at, $800,000 and sell it for $700,000. That's still the list price is 700,000. So if you get in and you do a price reduction. So if I start out at 800K and then I reduce it to 750 and I get 750, then that's my list price. Because we're seeing 1,200, well over 1,200 listings every 7 days, reducing their price.
Yeah.
So
I think the biggest thing is that buyers have more choices. And so agents think that the market's slowing down, that the demand is slowing down. And it's really, they just have more choices. That's the hugest factor that I see.
Well, one of the things that I put here on this line is my little simple little line here. That yellow line. See, here's our sales today. If you go way over to the right, we're at 3,500 a week. That hasn't, it's barely dipped. I mean, this looks like a big gap here, right? But that's only like 3,600. So the sales number is kind of holding its own, except the lower end has dropped off. And so,
what's the yellow line again?
the yellow line is, I just drew it. Here's where we are to the far right. See where our sales are for today under contract?
Okay.
I just put it there and said, where is that in relation to the rest of the year?
Gotcha. Okay.
And it's not, it just doesn't appear like a major drop off to me. And so I think that, that's something to check out. But Pat, what's, last week they had an 11% drop in mortgage applications. Did I read that?
Yeah, there's been a drop in mortgage applications. Refis are down substantially, but I mean, look at the chart. Here's can I flip back to my chart here? Can you? I mean, this is rates. This is actually rates. I usually always have an inverse between price and rates, but this is back in March. Obviously, this is back at the beginning of the year. We saw this staircase climb upward. So now, I mean, what's been nice is since the Fed's kind of said what they're going to do as far as raising the rates a half a point, June, July, in terms of the federal fund rate, we're seeing kind of a topping out here the last, really last month or so, since April 19th, we've been kind of we have some days. So rates have been kind of stabilized there. I mean, I'm right now at about with 5% down. I'm looking at, you're looking at 5.25, 5.375. I'm sure some lenders are higher, but so things have stabilized. I think the cat's out of the bag with the Feds. So we've gotten it seems like the pressure has been turned off the pressure cooker for a while, at least rates. It seems like they're going to kind of stabilize here for a while. I mean, my gut is that they're going to go higher. I mean, we're still in a rising rate environment, but we're going to see periods where it's resting now here, and this is where somebody's closing the next 30 days. I don't want to lock here, but I'd rather lock here. So this is a difference. This could be a difference of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 in your closing costs. This rate movement right here. So you got to be, if you're closing, I'm seeing some of the people that I follow, they're saying, you know what, if you're closing 30 plus days out, you can float because they see a little bit better pricing in the days that come. So, but there's going to be some big news next week with, pending home sales, the PCE, the producer, the inflation numbers are coming out next week. So it's going to be a volatile week. It's been a pretty quiet week this week. So
Smack's got a good question. The rate of homes changing, if it's come up versus last week, because I was kind of looking at that, and I think he's referencing this. If I can throw my chart up there real quick, Pat, this will get updated tomorrow. So remember how we were going like up about 400 or 500 homes, but then we went from 6522 to 773 active listings. I don't think that this week is going to beat last week. What do you think, Jackie?
No, I don't think so either. Definitely not. And I'm seeing more buyers that were sitting on the fence, getting off the fence. A lot of agents, as well as us, were reaching out to those clients that were waiting, because we know those 2 hikes are coming in June and July, and saying, listen, prices are going to continue to go up. The biggest factor is the rates are going to go up as well. So we've got more inventory. Now's the time to get out and start looking.
Believe it or not, when the Feds do raise rates, the actual mortgage rates typically go down the day that they hike the rates. Because people call me and say, "Oh, rates have gone up." I'm like, "No, they actually went down today." Because the market's looking 6 to 8 months ahead of time.
Yeah. So. Well, there isn't any news on the inflation front that gives me any optimism that they're not going to clamp down any tighter. I mean, everything that we look at, and the fuel prices. I mean, my gosh, they had something out the other day that Shell Oil and Washington State reprogrammed their gas prices to add another digit.
Yeah.
So they can get ready for $10 gas.
I just think.
I think
personally, not to get political, but I just think that if we see a different, a rollover in the government administration, I think you might see some positive things. I think things are gonna be tough my call is things will be tough till November, December, and then maybe start loosening up in January, early next year. If we do get a change that, obviously there's some things they can do to loosen up everything. My gut is that everything inflation driven has been energy driven in terms of gases, diesel, and it's translating into all these different prices. So
it's going to be a tough summer out there. I think here's kind of what Jackie was alluding to here too, that listings under contract compared weekly. So this gets interesting. This is every price point. So 10,074 for week 20. And week 20, I think I don't know if that's this week or not. But anyway, you take a look at that, but then let's filter, because Jackie, you mentioned below or around the 300,000 range, right?
3 to 400 has been the worst hit, but then you look at anything 800 and above, and it's like nothing's happened. It's just continuing strong.
So it's lower than last year right there. But now it gets interesting when you get to the 5 to 600,000 range, and look at the number of homes under contract. So when we sit back and we feel like sales are declining, and we actually look by price, it's not really. It's just not, and that's huge. That was last year. That's 400 homes more than last year. I guess that's not huge. It's just another one of those things where it's a big percentage of a small number. And then we get the 600 to 800,000 range, and it has a major pop on the upside. Now, if we get to $1 million to $1.5 million, that's usually not a big pool of homes, but it went up slightly. I mean, from last year, from 379 to 441. So they're increasing. But these homes here, I think, and I'm going to guess here, from 1.5 on up to 3. While it's showing that's up here, I think this is going to turn. Just because of the performance of the stock market.
I also think seasonal as well. I
mean,
it
does slow down in the summer, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
So it's and it's funny to go through and look at those numbers and try to find, when they say there's cooling, there is definitely some cooling going on, but it's really in relationship to the we just lost Pat there, in relationship to the forecasting model of the Crawford report. So demand, it's hanging in there,
right?
Yeah, but it's low enough to where homes aren't dropping off as fast. So it looks to me like there's a population out there that said, "Well, I'm going to list."
Yes, absolutely.
I've been thinking about it, but maybe now's the time to do it.
And I think that's a misperception in the market, because a lot of listing agents will say, I'm not getting, 15, 20 offers. It's not crazy anymore. And that's just because buyers have more choices. And so, I'm definitely not seeing it on the demand side. And we're seeing more buyers come off the fence. Am I by myself? Did you guys go away now?
No.
I'm just
trying to scare you there.
That's
the scare that goes. Now you know the feeling. It's like, oh my God, they left me alone. It's a creepy feeling, Jackie. I don't want to go there again.
Well, one time that did happen, and
it scared the hell out of me.
So
I had to
I
take
completely
control.
lost the connection, so I called Pat, and I could hear my voice going back through his phone, and I'm like, Pat, you're still on.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. Gilligan's Island. I'm the captain fell off the boat. Oh,
I think my biggest. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think from the 500,000 market, obviously you said the 400,000, because the 800, the 800, 900,000, they're paying cash.
Right.
So they're the ones, the 350 to 500 market, people are financing. They're trying to finance it. They're the starter home. So that definitely is going to have the impact, because you get the 1.2 million. These people are just, it seems to me, they've all been paying cash, which,
the average days on market for a home between 1 and 1.5 now is 21.
Yeah.
But that really varies widely by zip code too.
Yeah.
Are you getting?
Are you getting more people inquiring on ARMs?
Yes and no. I mean, I just had a webinar with a lender that we work with on our broker list. That's actually a privately held bank out of Texas that's got this really kind of interesting arm. 2 point, I know the parameters, basic good credit. I know what the LTV was, but 2.625 on a 6-month arm.
6
Which,
month.
yeah.
Wow.
So it's not actually, believe it. I think the 5 and 7 arms have been out there. I mean, honestly, on the broker side, I haven't seen really good pricing there's sometimes a couple months ago there was a couple banks out there that had great pricing on 5 and 7. I'm gonna say this just to keep everything straight aboard and transparent. The best 5-7 arm price I'm seeing are with private credit unions, smaller banks that can portfolio it. They got their own money. Um, my arm pricing has been actually not the greatest. Hopefully that'll turn around on the broker side. Some banks, like you said, some privately held banks, credit unions have been really tight on the pricing. That's my competition. But I just don't mind telling people what's out there and what the real story is. But there's this one bank that has 2.625 for 6 months, but basically it's tied to the SOFR. It's basically a new index that took the place of LIBOR, and it doesn't move around. It doesn't move around that much. So believe it or not, I think people were burned by the arms back in 06, 07, 08. Right. The prepayment penalties. That's where people get this perception. Oh my God, arm! I'm going to default on it. But like this 6-month arm, I mean, just not to get into too much detail, but I'll just run it by. I mean, I got it was like 2.625, 6 month. After a 6 month, the initial period, the max it can increase is 2%. So you can go from 2.625 to 4.625 after another 6 month initial. That's the and then after that, the most it can increase is 1% above that every 6 months with a total cap of 5. So you're looking at 7.625 is the cap on this loan. It's not a bad deal. I mean, for people that like want to, there's an interest only option. So, I mean, I think, if people think rates are going to eventually come down the next 12 to 18 months, 24 months, it's not a bad proposition, because I think too many people have gotten this thing in their head that arms are just the evil, the devil's, work. And it's really, most people don't hold in 22 years, I got probably one out of 100 people that keep their loan more than 7 or 8 years, 6 years. They're always doing something with it. So
Smack's got a good question here. When you list, doesn't that put you back in the buyer category? Not everybody. One of my clients is moving. They're moving out of the state. Bit off topic. Is it a good decision to purchase home with hauled water? See some homes in the 85262 area code, decently priced, but with hauled water. Have you had much experience with that, Jackie?
I have. And where is that zip code? Does anybody know? I can.
No.
Okay, so it's going to depend. Hang on real quick. Where is 85262?
Let's see.
Okay, so that is the reservation.
Well, there's some out by east of Fountain Hills too that has a lot of hauled water.
Right. So what you got to be careful of, for instance, Rio Verde, because there is a lot of water issues going on in the valley overall. So Rio Verde, come December, if they aren't able to sort this out, they're going to lose access to their hauled water. And I sold many properties out that area years ago when it was first being developed, and there was some good wells, and those wells are struggling, and then their well water is going to get cut off in December if they don't come up with a resolution.
Yeah, I saw that.
So you got to be really careful when it comes to water. You got to make sure and talk to an agent that's very familiar with that, because even, for instance, New River, there's areas of New River that wells have gone dry, and there was one person I know spent $80,000 on a $350,000 home they purchased a couple of years ago. $80,000 and still couldn't get water. So you just got to be really careful.
Right. Adams, can you send Pat an email with that question? Um, and then because it's kind of a long one. Pat, did you see what he's saying? We have mobile electrician business started doing winters in Wickenburg, summer in Pine Top. Are there any loans out there for people who own businesses?
Yeah, there are. I mean, bank statements. There's they call them debt service coverage ratio loans. Are kind of like non-QM. They could take your 24 months, 12 and 24 month bank statements and figure out the cash flow there. Yeah, there's loans out there. Yeah, it's more detailed answer though. If you want to email me
Yeah.
at pmcmasters at Price Mortgage.
Remind me about water. I met a guy who's in water conservation for the city of Mesa last night. Interesting conversation. Can't wait to tell you about it. Our buyers still backed up waiting for their home inspections. I haven't had an issue with that. Have you, Jackie?
No, not so much. Not like
No.
it was a few months ago.
Yeah. Appraisals were running late a few months ago. They were like right down to the wire. And you probably experienced that more than anybody, Pat.
Yeah. I mean, it's just obviously the AMCs don't help at all. I was talking to an appraiser. The other day, and she said all appraisers hate AMCs. You know, it's a third party company that they have to go through because they take a cut. It doesn't do anything to help the consumer at all. Nothing.
Yeah, be careful what the government touches. It tends to just get worse. So,
yep.
So, which city is better regarding water costs, Gilbert, Mesa, or Chandler? I don't know if there's that big of a difference. I know that there's a couple private water companies out there in Santan and in Anthem and in Fountain Hills. And the Anthem water is notoriously expensive. Fountain Hills, moderately. And Santan was just not so much the price, but you just couldn't get any water pressure. You know, so, I mean, so you got to watch those private ones. The difference between Gilbert and Chandler, I doubt if it's much, but I'd have to check into that for you. So the Mesa guy, I couldn't help it. His shirt said Water Conservation Department, City of Mesa. And I go, okay, I got to ask you.
Yeah.
I go, I understand that Mesa just came out with new guidelines for water conservation. He goes, well, it's just another forecasting model that we do. And I said, so tell me about the water shortage. Is it real? He said, well, yeah, but he goes, here's our problem. And I said, because, you got this big development that's being planned out from Apache Junction all the way down the, Florence. It's going to hold 1 million people and there's no water. Right. He said, well, the dirty little secret is that as the valley was expanding and residential homes were replacing farms, they were using less water than the farms were. He goes,
makes sense.
Now the problem is there's no more farms. So he says that big development, that's nothing but barren desert. He goes, I don't know what they're going to do. There's no water for that. And I said, what about underground water? He goes, and he left me with one thing. He goes, there's two different opinions on water, paper and the truth. So in other words, the official, people will say, oh, we've got, I told them I was out in the place out in Buckeye, a new development. And they said, well, we've got our own aquifers down here. And he goes, yeah, like that makes sense. You see, they all come from the same source. You don't just have it, below you there. So, but he said, there's paper, what people want you to hear, and then there's the truth. And he said, and the truth isn't very good right now.
No.
And he said, but we have time. But he said, I just can't see how they can put 1 million homes out east of us here. You could if you were replacing farmland, but now that we're just going into barren desert and thinking we're just going to move the water over, he goes, ain't going to happen.
Well, you saw what's happening in Pine and Strawberry, right?
Yeah.
With the water. I mean,
their wells
scary.
are going dry. Yeah.
Well, that's what Tina Tambor, she says the biggest risk of buying a second home is not all this real estate, it's water.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep. Are the housing market and rental market playing a teeter-totter game in terms of pricing? Rentals, according to charts, kind of started to come down a little bit. It looks like a big move on the chart, but it's really like 2 cents per square foot.
Right.
So it's, it's a big percentage of a small number again. And so it looked like, oh, here we go. Well, then it just popped right back up because now, and what I think the teeter-totter is referring to is, well, I can't afford to buy, so I guess I'm just going to stay here. And sooner or later, that rental market's going to get, saturated. But we're not there yet. We got. I'm getting ready to list in Denver. I hope I don't miss too much appreciation. This, according to the data that we're looking here on the Crawford, and this is, here, not Denver. I love Denver, by the way. I lived out there for 2 years.
Denver's
It
been a hot
remains
market.
easy to sell a home. What's that?
Denver's been a hot market, boy. Man.
Yeah.
Well, Phoenix has too, but
It says if this cooling trend stays in place, selling will start to get much more difficult in August for here. Probably not Denver. Denver's, you've got a spring, the snow's gone, people are getting out and away they go. We're trying to figure out how to hunker down in a room with air conditioning. So we have a totally different market. And Daniel comes in and says, no big difference in water costs from my experience living in Mesa and Gilbert. Appreciate that. Adams, hardly no rentals in Pine Top. We have to go back to Wickenburg the end of June and all of July, then back up. Yeah, well, everybody's going to get the heck out of Dodge and go up there. So what would be your individual forecast for the market for sellers, buyers the next 3 years in Phoenix? I don't have one.
So that's actually a client of mine, I think, that just asked that question. I believe. Yes, that is her. In fact, they're closing on their house today. Nobody can predict more than the next.
Yeah, I can't even go out to December. Yet. But
the word crash, I think that's what everybody's so fearful of. And I don't see that happening here. We have too much. We have 100 people a day coming to Arizona. We have too many large corporations still coming. It's too attractive. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's not in my vocabulary. Yeah.
No.
I
But
think once
people see
again,
these little.
just because you saw a crash, 12, 13 years ago doesn't mean, that was the worst crash we've ever seen, in 50 some years, 60, ever, so I just don't see it. Once again, I saw it. I've said this a million times on this webinar, on this podcast, as far as, it was really a big result of the crappy loan programs that their lenders were putting out based on the government pressure from the government to say, hey, we got to, lend to everybody and anybody out there. So.
See Me to Buy says, Pat, we have a VA offer in Beaumont, Texas of 4.625. Being told lenders expect rates to decline over the next few months. Reason could be current political atmosphere. Heard anything about that? I haven't. It's pure speculation.
Yeah, Barry Habib, who follows a rate, he's probably one of the most on target guys. He says we're going to see a push into October, November. He goes, you'll probably start to see some rate relief December, January, February. That's what he's saying. Because once we go in, he said he's been predicting a recession. Everybody else is dancing around the fact that are we going to have a recession? He's the one that I've been following. He was right. He was the one that and obviously I didn't talk to him, but I totally professed to his feeling. Back when they were saying inflation is transitory. He said he called BS on that. He's like, it's not transitory. And I started seeing it myself, this is not transitory. So, I think rates are going to, once we go in recession, things will come, they're going to slow down a little bit and rates will, pull back a little bit.
Rates have to go higher than the rate of inflation, don't they, to have an impact?
Yeah. They got to really be, they have to step on it, but once again, does the market do its own, the market could do the Fed's dirty work by, crashing, 10%, 15%, things slow down that way, rates go up, it could be a whole myriad of things. We've been in it's a tough environment to try to predict stuff, but I think people are, if this overall, from what I'm seeing and reading, any type of softening, I think if people are serious about buying, use this as an entry point to get into something. Because like you said, if rates go, you can't, people say, well, I'm going to wait. Once again, I've talked to a couple of people, they say, I'm going to wait till rates come back down. I've said this a million times too, is if you're waiting on which way rates are going to go to whether you're going to buy, once again, if you lock in at 5.25 and rates due to go to 7.25, you look like a hero. If you lock in at 5.25 and they go down to 3.25, you can refi. So it's a win-win either way.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Is it difficult to use a VA loan right now with zero down in Cave Creek, for example?
No, I mean, I don't know if that's a question me for your. No, I mean, VA's been great. Values have been coming in. We've had, I had a couple that came in, no problem at all. I mean, it's a great loan. I mean, I think this is the type of time frame where, sellers start getting less offers. These VA people might, because the last 6 months have been horrendous for FHA and VA.
Yeah.
To get accepted because people are like, I can't, we're going to accept cash. But no,
Well, and I love your
VA
comment.
guy,
I love your comment that you said about a month ago, Pat, where you said people say that what they don't like about the VA loans is that they don't have a down payment, so they don't have any skin in the game. But they served in Afghanistan, so they have already put their skin in the game.
the guy that might be buying a house might have a fake leg or a fake arm. I mean, that would be skin in the game in my book.
We live in Avondale. How do we know whether water supply is adequate? That's kind of like the new debate. I mean, I don't know. I'm not professing to be a water guy at all. I'm just seeing the news, and and you can fly over Lake Powell and Lake Mead, and you don't need to be a water expert to look out of the airplane window and go, that's pretty bleak. Arizona is snowbird land, golf course land, horse roping capital of the world land. Good luck with it dying with all the boomers retiring. So you're saying it's going to die when boomers retire? So I think we're all going to move to Pine Top.
No.
If water becomes an issue, cities and state will begin to regulate our water use. Time will tell. I think we're going to see it in California this summer. We're going to see happening. How drastic they're going to get. They're saying even the restrictions that they put out this year, they didn't lower their water use because people just ignored it.
Well, you saw now they can only water exterior 1 day a week now.
Yeah. Yep. So I think, I just have no expertise in when it comes to that water. I'm that's out of my sandbox. If I bought 2 years ago, should I reach out to my bank to remove the PMI? That kind of depends, doesn't it, Pat?
Yeah,
is it 2 years minimum?
2 years, year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, I mean, sometimes every bank or servicer's got some. There's a general federal rule, but 2 years. I'm sure he's got equity. Yeah. I mean, so definitely a good move. They can, they might be able to remove it. Just depending on the servicer. He's got questions. I know that Smack. He's emailed me. We've talked. Or emailed me. So if he needs any help on that, just depends on what servicer he's working with too. But 2 years is definitely at least a great time frame to look at.
I love allergy season. So well, guys, got clarification. All the boomers growth brings other growth, hospital, stores, lifestyle, housing for boomers, etc. Couldn't agree more. I'm going to go ahead and wish everybody a happy weekend. See you on our new show starting Thursday at 6:00.
All right, everybody have a good weekend. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks,
Rick.
Jackie. See you, everybody.
Thank you.